I like these little proverbs, and I've collected them my whole life, and there were a couple that I really have loved throughout my life, and I would write them down on little index cards and stick them over my desk. One of my first ones was, the harder the ball drops, the higher it bounces, on those days when they were bad days. But after meeting Marvin Zindler, my very favorite phrase of all time, slogan of all time, is attributed to an anonymous Texas Ranger. And it goes, "A good man who thinks he's in the right and keeps on a-comin' is a hard man to bring down." That was Marvin Zindler. Because when he went on a crusade, when he went on a tirade, when he went out to help somebody he thought was really getting mistreated, Marvin was a good man who knew he was in the right, and he would keep on a-comin', and you couldn't bring him down. So I learned about persistence. I learned about standing up for what you believe was right, and I'll never forget it. And I think that I really learned that from Marvin Zindler.
I think the thing I took away from my experience with Marvin regarding my job was that long-term success in the broadcasting business had a great deal to do with being yourself at all times. Not just on television, but when you're out among the public. In other words, you had to be the same person off camera that you are on camera. You could not pretend to care on the air and obviously not care in person. And we worked with people. We worked with people who were phony as a $3 bill, you know. And you know it if you ever went to dine with them in a restaurant, you saw how they treated people. But Marvin taught me that whoever you are, be yourself, and people, you know, leave it up to people to accept you. Feel comfortable with yourself. And you say, well, he was putting on an act. No, that was really him. Yeah.
Right, that's the same thing that I feel. That was Marvin. Marvin off camera was Marvin on camera. And he would always dress because he felt he was being invited into your living room. And I think that one of the legacies that I have is just the idea of there are so many people who need help and they can't stand up for the help. They need a little push, they need some assistance, and one of the things is to stand up for what you believe in and go for it, and he was the model of that. But there was one thing also about the identity factor, of how he knew his power. We learned that he had 98% identity in Houston. He wanted to know what happened to the other 2%.
The thing I learned best from Marvin was, I've had friends throughout my life, but I learned how loyal a real friend can be. Marvin, I think, worked very hard, very long, and I think he worked very hard and very long to keep the team together, because it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to us.
When I first started with Marvin, I always used to remember him screaming, "It's hell to be poor." And the children that he would say fall between the cracks for medical care. And not just children, the adults too. And that's how I got to see a different side of this man. And he says, I can make it happen. It's the man behind the camera. And then we talked about political ambitions for a while. And there were people that wanted to run Marvin, not only for mayor of this city, but even they considered congressman. And he says, I can't get anything done. He says, politicians don't get anything done. They make promises. He says, but with this camera, I can get a lot done. And he said, Joe, always promise me you're not going to do it. And one time I got tempted, and I don't know if Bob knows the story. He says, I walked into the studio and they had it all set up, the lights and the camera, and I was thinking about running for a political office. And Lori looked at me and she says, you don't have to do this. And I said, what's going on? And Marvin says, sit over there. And I was sitting there and he was sitting there, and they had the big spots on. Bob had the camera, and Bob's got it pointed at about an angle like this, and he says to me, Joe, you really don't have to do this. And I'm sitting there and going, what have I gotten myself into. And Marvin immediately starts off, and I'm going to borrow Bob. He puts his hand on me, and it's like a Christian revival. The devil, out with you, devil! Political devil, out with you! We need Dr. Agris to take care of the children, out with you. And he's got his hand on my head like this, and Lori's going like this, and Bob is stuck behind the camera, and I was just so scared in the way it happened and everything. I was like, and that's what I guess Marvin was trying to produce. And then when it was all over and he had the exorcism done and the political devil left me, I said, okay, we had our fun, let it go. And he said, Bob, we've got 30 minutes, make the cuts and we're running it. And you never knew what was going to happen. He was just a surprise.